So I've actually done a few videos on this creator before, and I'll be honest, I do actually like her. But I think where she falls flat is purely and simply that she's young and she hasn't had enough life experience to be really good at being diplomatic. I think that's what it comes down to. So I'm sure she didn't mean to come across in an offensive way in this video, but I'm going to call her out. So sorry, Ashley, you're a lovely girl, but I've got to call you out on this video.
Lies I was told before moving to Australia from the US is Vegemite. The lie that everyone in Australia consumes Vegemite and loves Vegemite.
Now let's get real. I'm pretty sure that no one has outright said that everyone in Australia loves Vegemite and eats Vegemite. I think what she is mistaking here is a stereotype. People overseas see videos about Vegemite. People overseas, and particularly Americans, are fascinated by the fact that we eat Vegemite. And so there is a stereotype that we all live on Vegemite. But to turn around and call it a lie, to me, this is really not a good way of tackling this. Who is she saying is lying? Is she saying that Australians are making a lie up about Vegemite? Or is she saying that someone specifically from Australia has made up this lie about Vegemite? And I know she's not meaning it in a malicious way. I just think that it's a really strong way of discussing something that at the end of the day is, in my understanding, a stereotype that she has misunderstood. And rather than saying, I misunderstood this stereotype, instead she's saying she's been lied to.
I think I've heard one person talk about it, and that's it. Most I've heard is in regards to Vegemite scrolls or other Vegemite flavored things. I've heard from Australians and my partner who's Australian that he had it more as a kid.
So she's actually basically discounting things like cheese and Vegemite scrolls or the Arnott's cheese and Vegemite crackers and saying they don't count as Vegemite because it's not out of the jar. But it is still people consuming Vegemite. And okay, I can understand what she's saying here about that people probably don't have it as much as when they were kids. But let's look at that. That would come down to the fact that as adults, many of us prefer to have different kind of things for lunches when we're at work. A lot of workplaces have kitchens where you can heat up meals, and I know in cooler places like Victoria and Tasmania, which is where she has lived, that a lot of people do like to be able to have something hot for lunch. So some hot noodles or hot soup with a roll, because that's what the climate is like. In warmer climates, people maybe don't have so much hot stuff. But we tend not to take sandwiches to work with us, many of us. It's just easier to have something that we can heat up at work or something that we can put together at work so it's nice and fresh. As for other instances of having Vegemite, I know a lot of people who still love Vegemite on toast and still love crumpets with a nice bit of butter on them and then Vegemite on top. It's not a kiddie thing. It's something that so many people still enjoy. So I think it is definitely a little bit naive So I think it's definitely a little bit naive to be suggesting that Vegemite is just kids' food, especially after pointing out that people have it in cheese and Vegemite scrolls, etc. To me, that's the same sort of rationale as if someone were to say that somebody doesn't eat peanut butter because they don't have it in sandwiches, but maybe that person likes having peanut butter cups or Reese's Pieces or something, but that doesn't count. And of course, the presumption that because we don't talk about Vegemite means that we don't eat it, that's a little bit odd. I don't think I've had a discussion with anybody this year outside of YouTube regarding my preferences when it comes to Vegemite. But I can assure you, I've had plenty of Vegemite sandwiches. I've had Vegemite on crumpets. I've had cheese and Vegemite scrolls. I've had the Arnott's cheese and Vegemite biscuits. I've had plenty of Vegemite this year. It just isn't something that generally comes up as a topic of a conversation amongst most Australians, because it is something that so many people eat that, well, why are you going to discuss it?
But like, it's not like he even wanted to get it for the house. Like, I don't know really anyone that consumes it quite regularly. Like, is it mostly younger kids that have it or have grown up on it and it's more of like a nostalgic thing?
I think it's possible that in this day and age, with so many additional food choices and with people having way more takeaway food than they used to in the past, that perhaps Vegemite is consumed less than it was in the 70s and 80s. But it's not a nostalgic thing that you have just because you used to have it as a child. People who still eat sandwiches, or people who have crumpets or muffins or toasted sandwiches, I mean, who doesn't love a toasted cheese and Vegemite sandwich? Yum. These are all things that are still popular. If you have sandwiches, then there's a good chance that you may, if you like savoury things, have Vegemite on your sandwiches. And I think it would be interesting to know, out of people who do have sandwiches, what their preferences are as opposed to Vegemite, peanut butter, jam, honey, etc. Because I think you would find that Vegemite is still well represented. So I think she has very much misunderstood this. And I can understand if she's saying, well, her boyfriend wasn't even worried about buying it for the house. Clearly they're both working. They probably don't have a lot of meals at home. I certainly get the impression that she does enjoy eating out quite a lot. She certainly seems to enjoy going out for coffee and stuff. So that makes me question how many homemade meals they have and how often they have sandwiches. Because if you don't have sandwiches that often, then you're not going to buy the things you need for the sandwiches. Anyway, I'd love to know what other people think about this. I know that she is correct. Not every single Australian loves Vegemite. Not every single Australian eats Vegemite. And no, we don't eat it every day. But to say that it's a lie and to infer that only kids eat Vegemite is just a little bit odd to me.